Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today on Build Your Fort with Lentheus Chaney. And today's guest is Kenzie Perry. He's an award-winning interior designer of residential, hospitality, and commercial spaces. And Kenzie took a leap of faith into entrepreneurship. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And Kenzie's going to give you guys some great inspiration as to why he did what he did, how he did what he did, and how you can do the same. Thank you so much, Kenzie, for joining us. Gratitude is very important to me, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. So, we're going to lead right in and start this interview. So tell me the reason why you got into interior design, or better yet, tell me the moment you fell in love with interior design.
Ooh, so I've been an artist all of my life, honestly, since I was a little boy. Following my mom around the house, mimicking her and sketching comics from the daily newspaper. That's how it really started. And she's always been a creative as well. And so I just really kind of followed behind her footsteps. And she showed me a lot of things that she did when she was younger. And I started to fall in love with interior design when I was in high school, because HGTV was very popular then, and there was a lot of shows on that I just connected with. And I saw that when it was my turn to tidy up the house or clean up the house as a weekly chore. And sometimes I did it just simply because I'm an organized freak. And I wouldn't just clean the house. I would literally rearrange the furniture.
Okay.
And make the place look different. And when I graduated from high school, I consider art as some kind of art discipline as a career. But I actually went to school for music first, for gospel music, actually. And it didn't work out the way that I thought it would. So a year later, I changed my degree to interior design. And that was a learning curve within itself, because there's a difference between interior decorator and interior design. So I had to learn about that first. And full circle. My mom actually went to school for interior design. And when she was pregnant with me, she actually discontinued her studies because she had a family to take care of. Gotcha. So it's amazing how I went to school and got a degree for her.
Oh, for her.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it wasn't intentional. It just happened that way.
So would you say that, she's somewhat living vicariously through the work that you do?
I think she does more so now than before, because when I've worked for other firms, the work that I provided for companies didn't belong to me, and therefore I didn't share it. So what's great about having my own company now is that I claim my own work and I get to market it and advertise it and showcase it to the world. And that's what's so important about what I do now. So she definitely loves what I do. She's a big supporter of what I do. And she even has me designing her bathroom right now. It's still a work in process, but yeah, she loves what I do.
Beautiful, beautiful. Tell me what inspires you.
A lot of things inspire me. I have my phone on me all the time like anyone else. And I take walks in the morning sometime, and I take pictures of things, mostly plants and flowers, just nature, because I'm connected to nature. I'm a Taurus, so my sign is an earth sign. So I love to be outdoors. I'm inspired by other people. I'm inspired by art. I'm also inspired by my faith. I'm inspired by creativity. There's not one thing in particular that inspires me. I try to look at shows that educate me and help me to learn something different. So I would say just experimentation, education, learning inspires me. I like to be challenged and learning something new and connecting with nature. Yeah.
So, this platform that I started, was to tell stories of people like you, people that I admire. And I want, people to be inspired by the words that you speak to them. Tell me a little bit about when you decided to pursue this path of interior design. I mean, I know you said, were in high school and you were cleaning up the house, but what was that moment that you decided that I'm going to pursue this professionally?
So you mean on my own or just in general?
Well, no, not on your own. Just, we know you took the leap from corporate America to doing it on your own. But when you got into actually working for another company doing interior design, when did you decide that that was the right move for you?
You know when something's right when you have a passion for it. I think that's the clearest answer. People who don't have passion for what they do don't pursue it wholeheartedly. And when you
Right.
love what you do, it doesn't matter what ropes you have to climb or what doors you have to knock on or what school you have to go to. You pursue what's in your heart. So
Exactly.
for me, art and design and creativity is in my blood. So I've had jobs prior to becoming an interior designer that just wasn't creative and it didn't inspire me. So I needed a work that inspired and propel my passion. That's when I started to take it very seriously, simply because
Beautiful.
I love the work that I do. And I had support from family, friends, and educators, that pushed me forward to be the best designer and the best me that I could be. And it was great having that community and also having people come into the school or my life or visiting firms that allow you to see what your life could be if you pursued the degree or the industry. So that's definitely when I began to become very passionate and serious about this career. It just happened organically, but passion definitely was the foundation.
Beautiful. So you spent several years working for a major corporation, honing your craft, doing your craft. Tell me about the moment you knew when it was time for you to make a change and step out on your own.
Again, I think stepping out on my own happened organically as well. You, like me, have been an entrepreneur for a very long time. And I've had multiple small businesses or side hustles, as people like to call it, for many years. And but I never quit my job to pursue them wholeheartedly. Mm-hmm. And so I'll tell you the first time where I pursued interior design full time, but it didn't work out in my favor. It's actually whenever a recession happens. In my field, interior design is a luxury. It's not a necessity. So when the market crashes, a lot of time interior designers lose their jobs because no one's traveling, no one's spending money, no one's getting out there and investing in vacationing, because I worked in the hospitality field, or in their homes. So I pursued interior design actually in 2009, but I didn't have the network that was needed in order to actually get there. And so in 2020, when COVID happened, I was out of work. I was on furlough for many months, and I didn't even consider starting my own firm. I actually started writing a book because I had this ideal of a book in my head for a very long time. And I said, okay, this is the time for me to pursue my book. So I completed the first draft. And as I'm here at home by myself, people began to call me. And friends were like, what are you doing? You need to start marketing yourself as an expert in the field that you work in. There's money to be made. There's money to be made. And you're so talented. You need to put yourself out there. And another person came into my house. When people come into my house, they're always blown away by the work that I do. Oh my God, you painted that mural. Oh my God, your home looks so great. I'm going to post pictures and put it on my Instagram. And then people will reply to their posts of the work that I did in my home. And it just so happened that a vendor that I was working with and a friend as well in the interior design industry called me up and she said, what are you doing? What's going on with work? I said, honestly, I'm here just trying to keep sane because COVID is very tough right now. And I'm just kind of like, working on the book and doing some small things here and there that I'd never had a chance to do. And they were like, do you want to design our kitchen? Right now, we need to redesign our kitchen. We need a designer. Wow. We think you'll be great. And it happened that way. One client came my way, and from there, another client, and from there, another client. So go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So it really and truly happened organically. I didn't decide to do it. I mean, I did eventually, but it kind of just happened, and it's great. And there's no turning back now.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember being on the phone with you and I was riding down the street and we were talking about this very thing. And I remember seeing how your Instagram has just transformed, and what I really love is that you asked your audience questions. What do you think about this? You got their buy-in, and then you just flourished. I mean, it's just been amazing to watch what you've done. I mean, I've got one of your pictures in the living room right now that I bought from one of the sites, and I'm just proud of it. Every time that I pass it, I say, "Oh, I know that guy right there. That's a friend of mine." So, kudos to you for that. You answered one of my next questions. My next question was going to be, why couldn't you do that work for a company and be what people consider secure? But you've already alluded to the fact and said to the fact that whenever there's a recession, that security kind of goes away. I mean, were you actually furloughed or hours reduced, or did you just make the decision, I'm going to go?
No, I was on furlough. My furlough started. So let's back up a little bit. I was working for Sandals and Beaches Resorts through a company called Hospitality Purveyors Incorporated for 6.5 years. There were some issues on my job where I wasn't getting the upward mobility that I wanted. And so I left and I went to another firm for 6 months. That job didn't work out. And as COVID was hitting, I was saying to myself, oh my God, I got to find a job, because otherwise I'm going to be out of work during COVID, because I saw that things were getting pretty dire. And so I called my previous employer back and they put me back on. And then literally a week later, they were like, you have to stay home. There is a stay-at-home order and you need to be on quarantine. So my furlough started April the 1st. And as we all know, when COVID hit our shores and they said there's a stay-at-home order, they said, oh, it's only going to be 2 weeks. But something deep down inside of me felt like if I left this job, I wasn't coming back. But again, stepping out on faith with my relationship with Source, I was told I would be taken care of. And so again, during that year, things began to happen organically. And I just had to let go and trust the process. And it's still an everyday trusting process that I go through as an entrepreneur. So I was officially placed on furlough. And when they decided to call me back, that's when I really had to make the decision. Do I want to go back to my job? It was November the 1st that they were inviting me back. And one of the benefits of being on furlough is that I still had my health insurance, which was great. But I had to think within myself, if I really do believe that I can do this, I have to step out on faith and release my job and believe that income will be sustained based upon my talent. And that's when I took the leap.
Is there anything you miss about corporate America?
There's some things I miss about corporate America. Mostly, I would say benefits if you're working with a company that provides great benefits, like 401k, matching your investments in 401k. Definitely. That's one of the things that I miss. I would say that I miss the camaraderie of working with other designers that always provided a big support. And I think maybe that's the most that I miss about working in a corporate.
You work hard all year long, so why not get more for your money at Experamax Midtown Atlanta? Looking for a MacBook Pro, iMac, or iPad? Don't pay full retail prices at the Apple Store when you can get the same quality products without the premium price. Experamax in Midtown Atlanta is your Apple headquarters, with everything from Apple desktops to laptops, watches, accessories, and more. Get the peace of mind you deserve and buy with confidence, knowing that all of Experamax certified pre-owned products are put through rigorous testing to make sure they deliver the reliability and dependability you demand. Experamax Midtown Atlanta makes it easy and affordable. Plus, you can trade in your old devices and get an offer right on the spot. So shop smarter and save money only at Experamax Midtown Atlanta.
So, Kenzie, as you and I both know, as an entrepreneur, you are forced to learn new skills. So what new skills have you learned?
I had a situation this week where I was working with a client and there was some miscommunication. And I think a lot of times most people are afraid to be an entrepreneur because they don't want to make mistakes. But mistakes is where you grow. And so, and working with this particular client, it showed me what things I can do differently so that there aren't any miscommunication between me and the client and what services they're expecting. So in the midst of being an entrepreneur, you're always tightening your business, whether it pertains to finances or customer service with your clients. So I will say tightening up my customer service connection with my clients and making sure I deliver on what it is that they need. I'm always learning how to design differently too. And last year when I started my firm, I always wanted to get in fabric and wallpaper design. And as a fabric and wallpaper designer, they're called a flat pattern maker. And I've never designed patterns before. So I taught myself how to create flat patterns that can be repeated on a surface like wallpaper and fabric.
Look, when I saw you started doing that, I was like, dude, what a skill to have, and to be able to teach yourself how to do that and now take that and apply that skill to your business, I'm quite sure has helped your bottom line. You can offer something new to clients that you didn't know how to do before, and now you can make money from that.
Right. And I wear multiple hats as an entrepreneur. I don't have employees now. I'm sure they will be coming in the future. So I'm doing everything myself. That includes my website. So I'm teaching myself web design and development through online apps and other services that are available to the general public and entrepreneurs. So the learning never stops. There's so many things that I learn on a daily basis, for sure. But those are just a few examples.
Gotcha. Quite honestly, there are fears that come into play when you become an entrepreneur. I mean, tell me about the fears that you've had to overcome.
Some of the fears that I've had to overcome is, well, I will say that one of the reasons why I wanted to become an entrepreneur is so I can manage my own time. But let me start over. Okay. So one of the fears that I do have is making consistent income, because that's one of the largest things that you give up as an entrepreneur, a steady paycheck, until the business starts rolling and producing and profiting on its own. So that definitely was a fear.
That's real.
That's very real. Another fear of mine that I've had as an entrepreneur is just trusting the process, because a lot of times we think if you're an entrepreneur, you should be successful right away. So I like to give an analogy every time I do talk to someone that's interested in becoming an entrepreneur or just pursuing anything that's challenging. When a baby is conceived, it takes 9 months for the baby to be born and produced. And I have to continue to remind myself that even if I'm with child of, figuratively speaking, or I'm starting at another firm, you're always going to start from the ground up. It doesn't matter if you start at an entry level position or even a senior level position, you're still starting from the ground up on that level. So I just have to trust the process and realize that if I trust the process, I will get over to the other side and I will continue to climb. So I would say trust in the process for sure. Not having consistent income in the beginning. And I'm sure there's some other things there, but they're not coming to mind right now.
It's all right. It's all right.
Those are the two most challenging things.
So, it's amazing how you're intuitively taking some of my questions. I don't even have to ask them, but I am going to expound a little bit. One of the things I was going to ask you about, would you say your design aesthetic has changed and or improved? We already talked about the fact that you've added flat pattern making and actually developing wallpaper for your clients. So, and I've noticed something, you've got a new muse that I've seen as of recent and on your walks that you've decided to start putting into your patterns, and that would be the chickens. So tell me a little bit about, the roosters and the chickens, because we're both from Miami and we know you can walk around town and see a rooster or a chicken at any given moment sometimes. But tell me about how you came up with that.
So again, yes, my design aesthetic definitely has changed, because when you work in corporate, which is one of the things that I don't miss, is that design can be very cookie cutter. because you're designing for the masses. And because I'm also in Miami, people like sleek, clean, beautiful white interiors. And I learned that I'm going back to my roots of color. I work with a lot of color, and you don't have a lot of designers out there that work with color because they're afraid of color. But color is just so inspiring and so beautiful and energetic. And as I had mentioned earlier, I do take walks in the morning sometimes when I'm inspired, and I have my phone with me. And that's when I generate a lot of ideas as well. I just open up my mind and I become a kid again. And I think sometimes we forget how to be a child, you know.
Yes, come on.
And living as a child just allows you to be more exploratory, because as an adult, we get very stuck in our ways. And it really just kind of like dropped in my spirit. Wouldn't it be cool to do a wall covering that's inspired by chickens? Because I live in a neighborhood where there's chickens, and there's chickens running everywhere, you know, in Little Haiti. And then also my designs are inspired by my home. So you'll see that a lot of the wall coverings and fabrics that I design are murals that I painted in my home first, which I converted to wall covering and fabric and provided to the general public, and now incorporating in my designs with clients. But I want to go back to your question about fears as an entrepreneur. I think one of the fears that I've had to deal with as an entrepreneur is not being afraid to be great, and not being afraid to succeed. Because, you know, one of the greatest fears that people have is undermining their potential.
Yes.
And you don't know what kind of potential you have until you work for yourself and you're able to reflect and look at what you do and say, wow, I accomplished this and I can take ownership of it.
Yes. And you hit the nail on the head with that. That is so very true. And many people suffer from imposter syndrome, where they don't feel as though that they can do it or they're worthy of it.
Yes.
And getting out of that mindset is so important so that you can thrive. You know, listen, even this podcast, I was like, is this something that I can do?
Right.
There's so many podcasts out there.
Yeah.
Am I good enough?
Right.
And I had to tell myself, yes, sir, you are good enough.
Yeah.
You've got the knowledge, the know-how, the people skills, and you know a lot of great people that are surrounding you. And I want to tell the world about them. That's my passion, telling the world about awesome people like yourself. And you mentioned something else a moment ago about, you know, being as a child, you know, and growing up, you know, that's how Build Your Fort came. That's how my company name Fortress came, because after being laid off of 20 plus years in corporate America, working for a major telecom, not having that security is not something that I ever thought would be reality for me. Just like you and I, we've always had different ventures, and I've had a whole bunch of businesses while holding down a 9-to-5. But that push out of the nest took me for a little bit of a loop, and I had to decide, what is it that I want to do? And so one of the things I did, when you talk about that childhood and those thoughts of what made you happy, that's what I did. I thought about what things made me happy as a kid. And that was, I can remember going in my backyard. We're from Miami, so you know how it is. You can find some wood and some blocks. You can make whatever it is you want. I was the only child, so I had to be creative. Yes. So I went into my backyard, and we had some leftover building materials from some construction we had added onto the house. And I built a fort out of concrete block, old carpet remnants, and then some what do you call it? Not cardboard, but plywood as my roof. And that was the happiest that I can remember. That's the one thing that I can remember as a kid. And that's what led me to real estate. And that's what led me to this podcast, Build Your Fort. That's what I did. Going back into that childhood behavior, that childhood thought of what makes you happiest, those are one of the things that you can do to get to where it is that you're supposed to be. Happiness is not necessarily money. It's not necessarily things. It has nothing to do with clout. It's all about happiness. That's what makes you successful. Yes. But I digress. This is about you today. You know, one of the things that I know, and I know you know, as an entrepreneur, you can become a workaholic. It's very easy to do that. So how do you balance life and business?
Wow, that's a very good question. You do become a workaholic. And I'm learning to create boundaries, especially with clients, because they tend to like to text you all times of the day. You see my eyes getting bigger.
Oh, I'm with you.
So you just have to let people know I don't work on weekends. Let's follow up on Monday. Right now I have been working a lot as well because I'm working on something special, which we might talk about a little bit later. But when I do carve out time, one thing that I appreciated about COVID is the fact that it taught me how to sit down and relax. So I think about my days of COVID where I would take bubble baths and I would look at movies and I would dance around the house and just do things that were free and expressive.
Yes.
So I still do those things. And when I stop to do it, I remember this is why I have my own company, so that I can carve out time when I want and as long as I want to do the things that make me happy.
Yes.
So one thing that I have developed from becoming an entrepreneur and since COVID is I do yoga mostly every morning. Don't get me wrong, I am addicted a little bit to social media because a lot of my work comes from social media. So I'll pick up my phone when I do wake up. Sometimes I'll post. Sometimes that's a habit. But before I work, I go outside, I take a walk, or I go in my garden. I walk around my property. I look at the plants. I come inside of my home. I also sage. I meditate. Yes. I read affirmations. I do yoga. I read another affirmation. Sometimes I write in my journal. Then I work. Because if my body and mind is not together, I can't give the world my best self.
Yes.
So my mornings are so important. But over the weekends and sometimes in the evenings, I still like to take my bubble baths and I like to just decompress and get in bed and look at TV. I love TV to decompress, reality at most, which is not always the best, but it's pure entertainment.
Definitely. You've got to have a little bit of ratchetness here and there. It's all good. It's all good. Kenzie, you keep taking my questions, and I was going to ask you, what are your tools and the tricks that you use to stay focused on what matters most? But you've already answered that. All of those things that you've talked about, taking your walk, meditating, saging your home, taking your bubble bath. Am I right or wrong? I mean, would you say that's a correct answer to that question?
I think it varies for everyone, but you're correct. Another thing that I do is I keep a journal for my business as well. Whenever I get ideas, I'm always writing them down. Mm. And one thing that I've learned as an interior designer, so what we do as designers is when we work on architectural plans and there's a revision that we have to make, we highlight it to say that it's completed. Because sometimes the brain doesn't know if you did this or not. So when I complete a task, I highlight it. And as I looked at my book, I'm like, oh my God, look at all these highlights. I'm accomplishing my goals. I'm accomplishing my dreams. And I think it's important for you to write down your goals and dreams because they become a reality. As they say, when you get ready to plan, you have to write down a vision, and then execute it. Sometimes we think that we have to execute it immediately, but sometimes those dreams and aspirations clearly they don't happen overnight. But at least you have a constant reminder in that book that when you need a new, fresh idea, or when you need to go back and think of what other designs I can implement, I go to my sketchbook and I go to my business journal and I look at the things I've written down to help me stay on track. So that's
a great practice.
Yeah.
That's a great practice. What is the best advice that you've been given as an entrepreneur?
Just start. Just start. There's so many different types of advice that you can get from people. Wake up early and work at 5 a.m. Or, I don't know, there's just so many, or have a business plan. This time around, I usually would create like a small business plan. This time I didn't. I just wrote down ideas and I got to work. Because sometimes I think you can get caught up in business plans where you can work on a business plan for years and never start. And sometimes you just got to start to see how to iron out all of those kinks and see what works and what doesn't work. Because failure is your best teacher. You make mistakes on a regular job if you're an employee. And I think sometimes becoming an entrepreneur, we're like, but I don't want to make a mistake because I'm going to be liable to fix it, or work with the client and resolve it. You do that now as an employee. Why can't you do it for yourself? And you probably do a very good job as an employee. So yeah, you can just apply those same principles and tools to entrepreneurship for sure.
Beautiful. In conclusion, my last question for you, my friend, is if you had to do it all over again, what would you change about your journey, if anything?
I've heard that question before. And what would you say to your younger self? And I can't say that I would change anything at all. Of course, we would like things to be differently, but life unfolds as it needs to, according to the purpose that you have in this universe. And whatever experiences you go through make you a better person. I think if I changed anything earlier on in my life, I could have went down a dead end road. But here I am now, following the path as it unfolds before me. There's something important that a minister at my church said. He stated, are you living life, or is life living you? And I think when we believe we're living life and we're in control, that's when we're most not in control. So when life is living you, you're just open to just every possibility. You know, why be in control when there's just so much available at our disposal? Just go with the flow. You've heard that before. So yes. I wouldn't change anything, because I wouldn't be here right now where I am if I changed the past. So
that is absolutely
I'm thankful
beautiful
for the past. They say you don't know where you're going unless you know where you came from. So I'm grateful for my past. Certainly looking forward to the future.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate your time. I love the work that you're doing, and I can't wait to share this with the world and everybody I know. Thank you. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. I'm so excited.